Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr and also with Kevin Noon as we are watching the final seconds of Ohio State's 56-7 dismantling of the Michigan State Spartans. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, this was a game where Ohio State was favored by the biggest margin I think they'd ever been favored by against a top 10 team or something like that. And they more than doubled that margin of victory. And somehow that didn't quite reflect the lopsided nature of this game. That is, of all of the butt kickings I have seen Ohio State put on people over the years, upon some occasions receive over the years, that might have been one of the most thorough.
Kevin, how's it going?
It's going okay. I just want to get this out here right now. Ohio State only had 155 yards of total offense in the second half. I'm selling on this team. Forget it. It's over.
That's quite a stat. As people join us, I would like to welcome everybody to officially Michigan Week. Here we are. It is Michigan Week, the greatest week of the year. We just watched Ohio State, and maybe we need to figure out where this ranks in terms of dominating Ohio State performances. I know I tweeted maybe at halftime that this is the most, just as close to perfect football as I've ever seen. And I had a couple people replying about the Wisconsin 2014 Big Ten championship game. Ohio State was only leading 38-0 at the half of that one. This was 49-0. This was NCAA football junior varsity level of when he should have been playing on Heisman. And it's like, no, I want to put up a bunch of stats. Ryan Day takes all of the sliders down and just lights up Michigan State like almost like we expected, Tom and Kevin, because we did say there's going to be a lot of passing yards. I did not call for 400 or whatever it was in the first half, so that's on me, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was we expected a pretty, Ohio State to be able to go up and down the field on this Michigan State defense and to be able to do it through the air. That was all sort of expected. But the degree to which they were able to do it was, I mean, just shocking to me. That was truly, I mean, that is as unstoppable as a team. I mean, you go back to like the Florida A&M game in 2013 where Ohio State I think won 77-0 and I don't think punted all game long. That was what it looked like. And this was a team that was ranked in the top 10 that was 9-1 before the game and ranked number 7 in the country, and they made them look like a bad FCS team. They basically all day the score of the Ohio State Michigan State game was tracking exactly with the score of the Georgia Charleston Southern game. Like it was like the exact same score for most of the day. I don't know where that one ended up, but that one was 56-7 at one point as well. And the really mind-blowing thing is, what could this have looked like if they had chosen to keep the gas down and keep the pedal down in the second half? Because it was done after halftime. If they kept the pedal down, they legitimately could have scored 100 points today.
Oh yeah.
Kevin, my favorite stat of the game: Kyle McCord threw more incompletions than C.J. Stroud.
Yeah. C.J. Stroud, wow. Just wow, had himself a game. 32 of 35, 432, 6 touchdowns, a 91% completion rating. 91.
Is that good?
When Patrick Mahomes from his couch tweets about the kind of game you're having, that is, that's some high praise right there. I mean, he took a break from making State Farm commercials to watch the little old Buckeyes play today. And CJ Stroud had himself a game. One of the stats that jumps out to me, and I haven't even really had a chance to look at the stats, Ohio State held Michigan State 5 of 16 on third down. And, okay, they throw for 158. They rush for 66. We don't want to be a total yardage show. I mean, that's obviously a big thing right there. But we said on the Friday show, show me third down conversion. What does Michigan State convert for in third down? And I'll tell you if this is a blowout or if this is a easy game. Well, we kind of see it.
Here's another stat for you guys. So Michigan State had 224 yards of total offense in the game. Ohio State had 278 yards of total offense in the first quarter. And it was remarkable. And The halftime stats on this one, CJ Stroud was 29 of 31 for 393 yards, and of course his 6 touchdowns. Tom, you were hitting your bold predictions by like the 6 minute mark of the second quarter, and I was just,
It was
I did all right. I had like 3 or something like that, and it's like I could not even keep up with you.
Yeah, I mean, you at least weren't punting like Mel Tucker was, so that was. I'm going to give you credit for that. But yeah, I mean, it was. You look at the halftime stats, which is, I mean, almost more telling than the whole game stats. Yards per play at halftime, average yards per play. Ohio State 10.2, Michigan State 3.1. They more than tripled Michigan State's yards per play for the entire first half. Every time they snapped the ball, they got a first down, basically. I mean, that is 26 first downs to 7 in the first half. And the most amazing part of that is 26 first downs. How many times did they have to get to third down? Out of the 26 first downs they converted, how many third downs did they get to?
There were only a handful in the first half, maybe a 2.
2 is the answer. So they were 24 of 24 of converting first downs, 24 of 26 converting first downs on first or second down, and 2 of 2 on third down. That is mind blowing. I mean, you go down that list. Average yards per completion, 13.6. That is like Army. That's what Army does over the course of the season, and that's because everyone goes, well, they're not going to pass, so we don't even need to think about it, and then they'll hit one. That's what Ohio State's literally and Ohio State was throwing the ball every play basically. They were like almost 2-1 passes to rushes, and they were still completing 13.6 yards per completion. And the running game was fine, 5.9 yards per carry. Trevion Henderson 7 yards per carry. Mayan Williams 8.8 yards per carry. Master Teague had 6 yards on 1 carry. Garrett Wilson had 5. I mean, it was just like that was unbelievable. I can't remember a game that Ohio State has played. I mean, you're right. You go back to like that 2014 Big Ten championship game or something. To go back to a game that was like, holy pants! Like they are just that game was over 5 minutes in.
Garrett Wilson was like 5 catches for 106 minutes with 106 yards with 8 minutes to go in the first quarter. It was insane. 500 yards of total offense in the first half. I assume I've seen that by Ohio State, maybe like against a Florida A&M or something like that, but never in a Big Ten game. And I go back to 95 against Iowa when Ohio State led like 35-0 at the half or something like that, or it was
56-7 at the half. That was 56-7 at the half.
It was like 56 maybe nothing at one point, and then 56-7 at the half, and it was like just a dominating performance. But I don't know that I've ever seen anything like this when until that final drive where they took a knee. Ohio State attained 100% of the yards that were available to them. Like they got touchdowns on every single drive. Got all of the, like if you're playing like a Mario or like a Sonic, they got all the coins. They got all those coins, and they got all of the hidden things like that, and really just amazing. And I know we've got some super chats we got to get to. Let's start with this Jordan Kapler one because he's dead on to one of the things Chris Fowler said. So super chat from Jordan Kapler. If only CJ Stroud had 3-star receivers to throw to, he might be in the Heisman conversation. I know Tom and I both spoke about this on Twitter. Kevin, what do you think of CJ Chris Fowler saying that, CJ Stroud's a Heisman candidate, but he has all of these great receivers, and Bryce Young doesn't have that. So maybe Bryce Young should be up there.
He's not the only person from ESPN, so they've gotten their talking points apparently, because I saw somebody earlier this week say something similar, that CJ Stroud just has too many weapons around him, and it may not be fair. And this little upstart program named Alabama, Bryce Young certainly is having to work a lot harder to get to this point. So it's ridiculous. I don't understand it. I really try to keep my mentions of the 4-letter network at a minimum, just because it sounds petty at some points, but for Pete's sake, I mean, it's ridiculous. And Todd Gump, thank you for your super chat. Kind of the same question or same statement. What's up with Fowler arguing that Stroud may not win the Heisman because he has too many weapons? thank God, ESPN controls a lot of things in college football. They don't control the Heisman. Unfortunately, it's about 39,000 voters out there that control the Heisman, so you just never know what you're going to get. But I think a lot of people will see through that.
It was amazing. And Tom, go ahead. I'll let you talk on it as well.
Well, I mean, we have a long-standing policy on this show that the Heisman is a stupid award and maybe the most overrated award in all of sports. And the reason for that is because every year it goes to the most outstanding quarterback or running back on a top 5 team. It's supposed to go to the most outstanding football player in the nation. It goes to the best quarterback or running back in the entire nation who's on a top 5 team. That's it. That's all it is. It's like the Davey O'Brien Award, and sometimes it goes to a running back. That's it. And, yes, Devontae Smith won it last year. Do you know who the previous non-quarterback, non-running back was to win it? Do you guys know off the top of your head?
Charles Woodson?
Charles Woodson, yes. So once every quarter century, there's an exception for, hey, this guy, was pretty good on punt return and stuff. So, I mean, whatever. Like it goes to the most outstanding quarterback on a top 5 team or most outstanding running back on a top 5 team. That's what it is. That's what it always has been. So guess who's the most outstanding quarterback on a top 5 team this year or running back on a top 5 team this year? It's CJ Stroud. Ta-da. Like if we want to change the criteria this year and actually award it to the most outstanding player in all of, in all of college football, like if they give it to Will Anderson, like absolutely. The idea that CJ Stroud can't get it because he's maybe not the best player on his team, guess who isn't? It also isn't the best player on his team. Bryce Young, because Will Anderson's on his team.
Yeah.
So, okay, like we can have that conversation, but again, the Heisman is stupid. The Heisman is massively overrated. But this is like this is stupid even for Heisman talk, which is generally pretty stupid.
I don't remember Joe Burrow being docked for having 3 or 4 first rounders on his roster, catching passes and taking handoffs. Just to let people know, we are currently watching the Michigan-Maryland game right now. If you would care to watch along on the
I've
Big
got
Ten
Nebraska,
Network.
Wisconsin on as well.
Ugh.
And there you go.
Wisconsin opening kickoff return for a touchdown.
So okay, something to keep an eye on. 2 possible future opponents for the Buckeyes. Certainly one. Super chat from Terry Kovac. Realizing that this season isn't over yet, are we comfortable in saying Ohio State and Georgia are separating from the rest of the pack? It sure feels like that. I was watching this thinking, will Ohio State jump Alabama? And then I laughed to myself, ha 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 ha. No, you idiots. We don't know. We don't know yet what Alabama is going to do to Arkansas, but as long as they win, it probably doesn't matter. But I think I'm not alone. You guys have your own feelings, but I know from watching these 2 games, these 2 teams, there's what Ohio State did today was special, and it's going to make some people rethink some things. I don't know that it'll make those 12 committee members rethink things, but I would like to see the lines, those projected lines between Alabama and Ohio State after this week. And let's see what Alabama does if they go do, 42-17 or something and are really good against Arkansas. That's something to watch out for. I'm interested, Tom, also to see how far Michigan State drops now after this game.
That's always kind of the interesting thing. Because again, we talk about this all the time on those Tuesday shows. When you want to know what the committee really wants to do, you look at the bottom of the rankings, not at the top. Because the bottom of the rankings tells you, here's how we're justifying the case. So if Michigan State drops from number 7 to like number 21, well, that's going to tell us that, it turns out they were just bad the whole time. So it doesn't mean anything for Ohio State. So then you'll know looking at where Michigan State is because they released from the bottom of the rankings up. When you look at the bottom of the rankings, the earlier you see Michigan State in that, the lower Ohio State's going to be. Because that's just, it's just justification for what they want to do at the top. I tweeted out that at this point, I don't care what happens in Oregon, Utah. Like if Ohio State after that first half is not ahead of Oregon this week, like just scrap the committee and just go back to the BCS computers because it's like you don't know what you're talking about. And I had a bunch of Georgia they played on the field, they lost the game. Well, guess what? Like we have established that head-to-head means nothing because Michigan was ahead of Michigan State like the week after they played. So now that doesn't matter. So, okay, that's fine. So it doesn't matter. There is literally no other argument for Oregon ahead of Ohio State. None. And if you're going to set it aside, I mean, What would the line for an Ohio State Oregon playoff game be right now? Because the playoff committee can do whatever they want to, and it's all well and good. Vegas makes their money on knowing, really truly knowing teams. I think Ohio State's like a 3-touchdown favorite over Oregon right now.
I'm looking. I had one from one of the books, and I'm trying to find it. It was like from a week or two ago, but give me a minute.
Well,
I was thinking
a
like
week or two ago, Ohio State did not look like this.
I know, but
Yeah.
I think that's a baseline, and we build from it.
Yeah.
I was thinking like 13.5, and it just gets bet up and up until finally
Mm-hmm.
it reaches a point. But it's been that. I mean, they would have been a favorite starting, I don't know, 6 weeks ago at that point. But yeah, it just keeps going up and up and up as I'm watching Maryland drive against Michigan and not yet throwing any interceptions. So that's impressive. I see a super chat coming in from Brady. 2 of CJ's incompletions hit the hands of his receivers. The other one was from a messed up route. That is crazy. And that one with the two, with the first incompletion with Garrett Wilson and CJ Chris Olave in the same area, and they said on the TV broadcast that Garrett Wilson took the blame for that one. That is, this was one of the most impressive single performances I've ever seen from a player. And I think Trey Sermon against Northwestern may have been number 1 last year.
Mm-hmm.
This is in the top 5 because he got pressured a couple times, still found guys. He ran once to make everybody happy. It's like everybody got what they wanted for their birthday, and he was on point. He was in control, accurate, and there was plenty of time for him to throw. And even when he had to step up and make some moves, he still kept his eyes on everybody. And I think also for the first time this season, maybe, like, there were no bad drops from any of the guys, and they were making really good. Like Chris Olave, that first touchdown catch was awesome, and then the 17th consecutive completion for the school record over his head on the bad shoulder, and just finding that, and just an incredible performance from everybody. Not so much Travion Henderson though.
Yeah, I mean, how big a concern is the lack of Ohio State running game today? My column. Yeah, that was just everything firing on all cylinders. And what was interesting was the game started with Maryland misses a field goal. Great job, James Franklin, kicking a field goal on 4th and 4 in absolute four territory. I'm sorry. Wrong Big Ten East coach who can't manage a game at all. Mike Loxley. If you're going to throw the ball short of the sticks on 3rd down, on 3rd and 5, you have to go for it on 4th down. That's what that means. If you're going to throw it short of the sticks, you've got to go for it on 4th down. All right. So that thus concludes. Well, and you know what? I have a Mel Tucker rant coming at some point, but we'll get there later. Yeah. I mean, that was remarkable because the game started with Julian Fleming losing the opening kickoff in the sun, and that almost being a total disaster. And then Ohio State immediately false starts on the first play. Chris Olave false starts on the first play, and it was like, oh, Lord, it's going to be one of those games for Ohio State. And then that was the end of things going wrong for Ohio State in the first half. Like, that was it. Everything else was just a steamroller, just smushing, those videos that you see on YouTube where it's like people doing, smushing stuff with a hydraulic press.
Oh, okay.
And yet, it's like, oh, hey, we better put a box of crayons here and we're going to smush it with a hydraulic press and see what happens. That was the entire Ohio State, the whole entire first half for Ohio State after that first false start. It was just like, okay. And now Michigan State goes into the press and like, ooh, look, little bits of Sparty everywhere. That's incredible.
It was like, I'll go back to my video game thing on the first start, where when I would play, if I really wanted to pile up the stats, I'd return the kickoff to my own 1. That way I'd get 99 yards of offense coming, and Ohio State did that a little bit. We wondered who was going to be back there. I did not expect to see Julian Fleming back there. Awesome for him to finally get his first touchdown of his career on one of those many touchdown passes. I would have liked to have seen, honestly, CJ Stroud get that 7th touchdown pass in the second half so that he would have the record all by himself. Now he's one of five quarterbacks with that, all
the crowd
in the past since 2013. Defensively, I saw somebody mention Steel Chambers destroying screens like no linebacker ever. He is pretty good at that. He didn't play a whole bunch today because they didn't need him. I was got to see Taraja Mitchell have his big hit on the special teams on the kicker-off return. So that was good. Kevin, what'd you think of? Also, I see Court Williams being mentioned. He was impressive today. I thought I had a couple of tackles for loss.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I haven't even turned to the defensive tab here on the stat book right now, but Court Williams was tied for team leaders with 7 total tackles, 2 TFLs, a PBU. I mean, he was out there flying around. I mean, I do remember one play where it looked like he got out of position, but as our chat has said here, this isn't the game to nitpick, fellas, so I'm not going to nitpick too much about it. I thought he came out there and played very well for the most part, but you're not going to come out in that type of position and play 100% A+ flawless. I mean, nobody does, but for what he did, I mean, that's what I've expected out of Court Williams as I waited last year for him to get healthy, what I've waited for this year as I thought he would ascend the depth chart. He's, not exactly in there with the ones, but keep doing that and you're going to move up, son.
Did Craig Young start this game? I thought I heard some mention of that because I'm looking at the stats from the stat broadcast right now, and Ohio State only has listed 9 starters on defense, and I'm pretty sure.
And they still won.
David Boston still returned that punt.
But like Craig Young was out there as well. He finished with 3 tackles, had a tackle for loss. They're just really aggressive with those bullets, and the whether Craig Young is a bullet or a Sam or whoever, who knows at this point. But let's talk a little bit about that defense because they held Kenneth Walker to 25 yards rushing. Alex Gleitman had a bold prediction in his weekly preview piece saying that Kenneth Walker would be held to a season low. He was held, I think his season low previously was like 56 against Youngstown State because he only carried the ball like 7 times. So 6 for 25 in this one. Obviously, a large reason for that is because it was 106-0 at the end of the first quarter, so you really couldn't run it. But 66 yards rushing for Michigan State on 21 attempts, 158 yards passing. Like, this was as perfect as the offense was. I could say the same thing for the defense, Tom.
Yeah, the defense was in some ways. I mean, it's hard to be as impressive as the offense was, but yeah, the defense. 3.8 yards per play, 3.1 yards per rush. They were 158 yards on 38 passes. So that's basically 4 yards per pass. I mean, that is insanely good. I'll pull up in a minute. I'll pull up the kind of team stats for the season and kind of give you the equivalent of what that is. That's basically a Georgia defensive performance. Although Georgia's not always that good against the pass. That was incredibly dominant. And there's always the question of how much this is really going to carry forward because Michigan is not exactly the same team as Michigan State, but Michigan doesn't have the wide receivers to do what Purdue did, I don't think, and I don't think they have the quarterback to do what Purdue did. So it's going to be more similar to what Michigan State did. So, that's going to bode fairly well for Ohio State. I always do wonder after a game like this, you're only truly up, like really up for so many games a year. It's very hard to be up for 3 games in a row, 4 games in a row. It's just a hard thing to do psychologically. Can they do it again against Michigan? And then can they do it again the week after that against Wisconsin? Because they really were up for Purdue last week and then Michigan State this week. Like that is very hard to stay like right on the knife's edge there, psychologically in terms of preparation, in terms of how locked in you are. But so far, the old axiom was you couldn't do it 2 weeks in a row. Well, they just did it 2 weeks in a row. So maybe this team is built different, as the kids say.
Yeah, we all said, oh, well, where's Ohio State going to have its off game? Maybe, as I said, maybe Nebraska was the off game. It doesn't have to be. It's not like, well, 1 in 4 games is going to be an off game. No, we see teams that have 1 or 2 struggles over the course of a season, have a couple of games where, they get through it, but it's not, I wouldn't call it a struggle. And then we see who they are the rest of the way. I mean, what if we saw some of those struggles? I mean, obviously dropping a game, that was a struggle. Tulsa was a struggle. Penn State was a struggle. Nebraska was a struggle. So we've certainly seen the struggles, But I agree. I mean, I took a lot of psychology classes in college because I'm as messed up as they come, and so I follow a lot of the stuff that Tom is saying there, and it is hard to be able to play at that top level, be completely mentally in. I mean, you hear the phrase emptying the bucket. I mean, it's true. You do empty the bucket in some of these games.
Kevin, I would suggest that it would have been cheaper just to see a therapist rather than spending money for college, hoping to self-diagnose your own
No,
issues.
not really. Not really. When I started at Ohio State, it was $700 a quarter.
And also and when you graduated, you got a cow.
And some Ginsu knives.
So yeah, I see B Threat TV, RIP Kenneth Walker, Heisman hopes, Buckeye D shut him down. Yeah, and if CJ Stroud, boy, what does Bryce Young have to do today to overtake CJ Stroud at this point? Because
Put on
I think everybody was watching this one. Yeah, everybody was watching. They only had to watch the first half to get the idea of what CJ Stroud was doing, and I can see like the Heisman sure seems like his at this point. There is still some time to go, and we won't really spend too much time on that because, as the editorial stance on this show is well known, no Hardy Jens. Caleb Williams is not for Heisman. I saw him have another rough day today. Iowa State was coming back on that one. I don't know where they are right now. They were down 7.
He had that long
Oklahoma.
run.
Oklahoma picked off a pass. It was 4th and 10 in the red zone. Iowa State tried to tie it, and got a Brock Purdy got a pass tipped and intercepted. So Oklahoma did survive by 7.
Kevin, what do you think of this from Expired? We will drop 70 on Michigan if they play like this.
It's a lot of points. Is Don Brown walking through that door? If they play like this, I'll tell you what, they're not going to call the dogs off in the third quarter. I mean, there's no love lost between Harbaugh and Day, and I'm not creating some controversy that doesn't exist. It's they don't particularly like each other, and if Ohio State comes out and plays like this, I mean, the big question is going to be how Ohio State handles Michigan's defensive ends, and if CJ Stroud is able to step up in the pocket and stay strong out there and set his feet. I mean, I'm not crazy about Michigan's secondary at all. So I'm not going to talk myself into 70, but I think Ohio State could put up a big prime number.
Don't they have to? But don't they kind of have to call off the dogs a little bit, Tom, with Wisconsin coming up?
Right. You have. I mean, Ohio State fans obviously want to see Ohio State hang 100 on Michigan, and that has been a stated goal of the program at various points in the past. But obviously, there are bigger picture things that Ohio State has to do. Like if you can get CJ Stroud out at halftime next week, I don't think it's going to be quite that lopsided. But if you could, I think you want to, because you want to get you just it's like survive in advance. And we saw 2 years ago. At the end of the Penn State game, Justin Fields took a hit, hurt his knee. Second half of the I think it was the second half of the Michigan game, either the first half or the second half of the Michigan game. Took another hit, hurt the knee again. Was still kind of compromised during the Clemson game. Like you have to be able to recognize that there are bigger goals at hand. Blake Corum is not playing, which is not great for Michigan. We'll see if he's back next week. He's in pads. He's just not playing.
I saw
for the second week in a row, Cade McNamara has hit an offensive lineman in the back of a head with a pass, which I don't think I've ever seen that, and he's done it 2 weeks in a row. I'm a little unclear how that isn't illegal touching.
Yeah, because when you throw it and it hits them in the back or something like that, it usually is. So yeah, I'm with you on that one. But is it a 5-yard loss for illegal touching, or is it just loss of down? I think it's 5 yards. Is it?
Don't remember.
But in talking about Cade McNamara doing that, with the number of passes that Ohio State batted down today, and combined with CJ Stroud or Cade McNamara not getting the ball high enough, the Ohio State's going to have some opportunities to bat passes down, maybe tip some passes up for somebody to come away with and intercept. Steve Buckholz, mine looked great too. He had some nice runs in there that you would like to see, like just keep going. But I get putting Master Teague in there and letting him go for Was it the entire second half? I think he had to finish with 21 carries.
21, 95, and 1. Yeah, I think he was in for, if it wasn't every run in the second half, it was darn near close. It was right about there.
It was every run because Williams and Henderson had 9 and 4 carries at halftime, and they finished with 9 and 4 carries. So yes, it was.
Yeah,
Those
Master
guys
had 1 in the first half.
Yeah, so he had 20 carries in the second half for 90 yards. One comment I do absolutely want to get to very briefly from Nicholas Marconi. If it wasn't for my horse, I'd have never spent that year in college. That is one of my favorite Lewis Black bets. All right, we can move on.
Nicholas Marconi also, Arkansas eating Alabama's O-line alive, like I called earlier in the week. Anybody want to give me an update on that? I'm watching Michigan.
3-0 Bama. They just kicked a field goal. Let me move my light. 7:41 left in the first.
Appreciate that. We will keep an eye on that one. Let's see here, going through this. I like the little tight end screen to Jeremy Rucker. I see GOJ. Jeremy Rucker will be key in the upcoming game. His action between the seams is essential. I like that screen. And you saw him, Rucker, turn on the wheels a little bit and start moving pretty quickly. There's some possibilities there. Possibilities everywhere. Still waiting for maybe a little wheel route from Travion, something like that. There's so much more available. The fake jet to the wheel. Again, just protect CJ Stroud against Michigan and watch the numbers.
Well, and one thing that I don't know, they didn't talk about it on the broadcast, but you could kind of see it in the corner of the screen on the play where Stroud rolled right. There was that real slow developing play where Jackson Smith and Jigba ran a drag route all the way across the back of the end zone, and the two Maryland Michigan State defenders got tangled up and fell, and he had the easiest throw of the day. In the backside of that play, Garrett Wilson kind of leaked out for a throwback screen. So keep an eye out for that for next week in Ann Arbor. That felt like you might see a different throw on that play a week from now than you did today.
GOJ, Michigan will develop a balanced attack centered around the run. This game showed me that the Buckeyes can handle the run, Kevin. I think I feel pretty much the exact same way here.
Yeah, exactly. And they did it without Palai'e Naote. Even though we did see we did see his little brother out there for Michigan State. So I know because I reached out to his little brother when we were trying to get information on Palai'e that he was there. Yeah, I felt that they did a good job against the run. There was a 16-yard run, a 15-yard run, but they were hitting them at the line of scrimmage. There were only one or two, maybe three runs that I remember saying, okay, they were able to bounce it out. They were able to sit there and plant the foot and be able to take it in a different direction. But if Ohio State plays discipline like that, if they play, if they get guys down to the ground, it wasn't a case of where we saw a lot of missed tackles. I mean, there were times where somebody might slow somebody up a little bit. Somebody else would have to come in and clean it up. But so many runs against, that Kenneth Walker had in the previous 10 games were cases of him just completely shedding tackles and being able to get up and go. And there was no get up and go in this game.
Yeah, his best runs were he made a couple of guys miss or just made some nice moves and found a cutback, but then it got shut down pretty quickly. And it's a really good job by everybody on defense. I think with the Michigan running game, they don't have anybody like Kenneth Walker. Blake Corum is quick and can make some moves and make guys miss. Who knows how healthy he's going to be, even if he plays. I do expect him to play. But Hassan Haskins is not that. Like, he'll just keep going forward and can find a seam, but it's all pretty much in one direction. So I think that running game is easier to stop. Michigan's offensive line is better. But I do my concern about Michigan's passing game is, can Cade McNamara attack Ohio State with the intermediate stuff? That's where he has struggled all season long, intermediate and beyond. Anything that isn't short is kind of a hope and a wish at times for the Michigan passing game. And then can the guys get open and hold on to the ball? So there's a lot that goes into Michigan completing passes 15 yards downfield, 10 yards downfield, 12 yards downfield. I do think Eric All is going to have some opportunities. For a while, Michigan State's best weapon was their tight end. And anytime you're being beaten by a guy in the 90s, I think you're going to be okay on defense, Tom.
Yeah, that's not a player who is going to torch you for 150 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's if you're gonna, if you're gonna get beat by a tight end, a big day for the tight end is 5 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown. Like that's Eric All is not going for 250 yards next weekend. Any of Ohio State's 3 wide receivers could potentially go for 150 yards next weekend. That's that's going to be the story I think this week is Ohio State, if they can pass pro, Michigan has not seen an offense like this. If they can keep CJ Stroud clean, we don't know. You can look at the stats, and I just pulled the stats up, and Michigan is one of the best defenses in the country in terms of defending the pass, yards per pass attempt. But they're not incredible. They're a lot of that is based on the fact that teams don't have their corners don't have to cover. For Ohio State, I mean, their corners, I mean, that was a game without Seven Banks, and they looked good. That was a solid performance all around. And, getting Michigan State in a very, very, very predictable passing situation helps. But Peyton Thorne completed 39% of his passes. That's pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question real quick. Just talking about Ohio State's secondary, the play that was reviewed, was that a catch? Was that an incompletion, or was that a fumble?
It was if the play in the Fiesta Bowl was not a catch, where he caught it and took 4 steps and then it fumbled it. If that wasn't a catch, I mean nothing. Then no plays were a catch today. So that was not a catch either. But I mean, it was very telling that he caught it. He had it. He wasn't juggling it. He had 2 feet on the ground. He made
3
a football
steps.
move. Yeah, made a football move to turn up field. Like it was like, if that wasn't a catch, then nothing is a catch. But that was like the Julian Fleming. Like that was more egregious than the Julian Fleming one at Nebraska, where it's like that was probably a catch. But I understand how you're not overturning it. I don't understand how you take that and overturn the call. That was what was egregious to me. Was not only did it look by the rule book definition of a catch like a catch, they overturned the call on the field to rule it not a catch. Like what?
And I think if his shoulder touches, then he's down, because that would have been the ruling for, remember, Denzel Burke's interception that wasn't an interception, where the dude barely had possession of it, but he had it long enough to hit the ground and be called down. So targeting, at least we didn't see any targeting calls today. Like targeting, receptions, I will forever be confused about receptions after the Clemson game a couple years ago, because if 3.85 steps isn't a catch, then I don't know how you establish a catch. Want to touch on blank name here. Congratulations, you threw for a lot of yards against the worst pass defense in the country. I noticed that Chris Fowler kept using that term, and yes, they've given up the most passing yards this season. If that's how you want to measure the worst pass defense, that's fine. But it's not just you threw for a lot of yards against the worst pass defense in the country. I think that's a little bit of a simplification. They threw for 393 yards in the first half against any defense. Any defense that's going to be impressive. This was the number 7 team in the nation, and we knew they were going to throw for some yards. I don't know that anybody called for 393, 29 of 31. Like, you could have no defense out there. How often are you completing 29 of 31 passes just against air? Probably not every single day. And to do that,
touchdowns were against air, I can assure you.
Yeah. Well, and to do that against a real live defense with a real live pass rush, and the clock ticking in your head, and seeing all kinds of stuff going on in front of you, like CJ was throwing stuff before breaks, and like it was as on point as you could hope for. And to diminish that, I mean, that's a little bit of a hater move. We shall see what happens against Michigan. I don't know what fan base that comment came from blank name, but I think it's a little bit more impressive than just congratulations, you threw for a bunch of yards against the worst defense in the country.
Well, and it, Tom Fernelli from CBS Sports tweeted this in the middle of the game. They keep mentioning it on the broadcast, and I've heard it all week, so I'm going to say it. Michigan State isn't the worst pass defense in the country. It allows the most yards per game, but it ranks 56th in passing efficiency and 35th in yards per attempt. So, I mean, and I have slightly different yards per attempt numbers. I have them at 44, but they're 7.1 yards per attempt. So it's basically, they are, in terms of yards per attempt, they're basically the same as Ohio State, Arkansas, Notre Dame, Minnesota. I mean, that's the neighborhood. Tennessee, like those are the teams in that neighborhood statistically. So yards per play, 7 yards per play, yards per pass against that defense. This is the equivalent of Ohio State doing that against Arkansas's defense, because Arkansas is 7.0 yards per attempt. Michigan State is 7.1 yards per attempt going into this week. So if Alabama puts up 500 yards of total offense and 390 whatever yards of passing in the first half, do you think anyone's going to go, well, yes, but Arkansas is one of the worst defenses in the country? No, of course not. That would be stupid, because they're not. They're ranked right, above. They are above average in the actual intelligent way to measure this kind of stuff. So
it just means more.
It does just mean more. It does, in fact, just mean more. But yeah, I mean, they're not great. Very clearly, they are not great, and Michigan torched them too. But no one has torched them like that. No one has done that to that Michigan State secondary. And that's one of the stats that you can look at is yards per play above what they give up to everyone else. So they're giving up 7.1 yards per play against other teams through the air. Ohio State had, yards per completion was 12.5, but they had 432 yards on 35 passes for CJ Stroud. So that's 11 something, maybe 12 yards. So it was they were say 4.5, 5 yards per attempt better than what Michigan State has been giving up all year. That's not all about Michigan State. Sorry. I'm very sorry. Michigan State is not fantastic, but that was a lot about Ohio State, much more so than Michigan State.
See some mentions of Denzel Burke. He did come back in shortly after that, then wasn't needed after that, so went back out. So it looks like he was okay. That would be that would have been a terrible loss, and it looked kind of scary when he's just holding his shoulders. I don't know if it was just a little stinger or something like that. I doubt it was any separation or anything like that, because you're probably not putting him back in the game. Patrick Lynch, what happened to Emeka? That was an injury this week. At some point, he was on the availability report as unavailable. You see him there. And just based on that first play of the game, they could have used it today. Kevin, were you surprised to see – this feels like a situation where Ryan Day was not kind of expecting, having to decide about Kyle McCord with the red shirt thing, and it looked like – I wonder what that conversation was like. And then we did finally get to see Quinn Ewers, but were you surprised that Kyle McCord came in to burn that red shirt?
No, because I don't think that he's going to need 5 years anyways. And it's, just one of those things. I mean, I'm sure there was a conversation like, hey, we're going to call your number. Are you okay with this? And, competitors, they want to compete. So he wanted to get in there. I mean, unfortunately, they did him no favors with 7 straight runs, and then he threw that bad interception, and then he redeemed himself with a better drive that was capped off with the Teague 1-yard touchdown, even though they still tried to throw for a touchdown inside the one. I don't think I'm surprised, because I didn't think Ohio State was going to throw for 11 million yards in the first half and 6 touchdowns and everything else. I didn't think that we were going to have this discussion for the start of the third quarter. Where would we be at that point? I thought, I picked Ohio State to go up 52-31. So obviously I saw Ohio State winning by 3 scores. I thought maybe in the fourth quarter we might get to a point of where we need to see a drive or two with another quarterback. But no, I certainly didn't anticipate things going down this way.
It was then interesting. The crowd appreciated seeing Quinn Ewers out there. I did, Tom. I wanted him to drop back and just sling it. And you know what? If he throws a pick six, if he gets sacked, if there's a holding in the end zone, is Ryan Day in danger of being fired for being a little loose with Quinn Ewers? I don't think so. It would have, the fans did not get to see enough offense in this game. Almost an entire second half of seeing nothing but running the ball. I think it could have been justified. And even if it's not like Mel Tucker could do anything about it.
Yeah, that was. I mean, that was. We talked earlier about the 1995 Iowa game where Ohio State was up 56-0 in the first half, 56-7 at halftime. That game ended up 56-35. Like that was a miserable slog of a second half. That was a terrible second half. This was just like the game is over. It's Michigan week already. There's just still time left on the clock. The fans did. I mean, credit to the fans that stuck around because number one, it was not the warmest day in Columbus today, and there was a decent number of fans who stuck around for the the game that was already over for 2 hours, stuck around for the second half of it. And then it was a very cool moment when at the end of that drive, they were all chanting for Master Teague. They really, they were calling for Ryan Day to give Master Teague the ball and let Master Teague score a touchdown in his last, potentially last game at Ohio State. He walked today for senior day. So you would think that's probably an indication this is probably his last game in Ohio Stadium. That was a very cool moment. That was fans who know what's going on, good situational awareness, like honoring a player who's done a lot for Ohio State and never complained. And that was a cool moment. A couple things I do want to touch on real quick in the chat. Joshua Hunt says, leave a like to get this video trending. Please do that. Hit that thumbs up button. That will help other folks find these shows as well. That we do appreciate that. And the more people who are on here, the longer we're going to go. Like this might break a record for longest show because we can kind of do this watching the Michigan game and keep you going. So if you want us to keep talking, that's a good way to encourage other folks to find us.
Our numbers are plummeting right now. Stop.
Oh no.
Stop. No.
Robert Fincher also says, what is the initial count of Tom and Tony bold predictions? I have not checked the final stats, but it was a record-breaking day on so many fronts. One of them was that I get 7 points because I hit 4 of my 5 1-pointers plus my 3-pointer. Tony, was it a record-breaking day for you too?
It may. No, I don't think I got any of my bonus. I think at most I got 3, and I still feel like I did pretty well. But at one point you had 8, and it's like, well, I don't need to keep score anymore. I'm pretty sure.
Well, I had misread one of mine. I was looking at it as Ohio State's passing yards, not Michigan State's. So I was never at 8. I only had 7. But 3, that's good for you.
Plus, I haven't done all of the math and the yard lines yet. I mean, there's still a lot of work to be done on whether any of these did these 8 seconds of stats count. I don't know. Where was he running on these 7 seconds from this 34 yard line? I may just assume I lost at this point. There's just so much math involved.
That's a safe assumption. There was a comment earlier from, I think it was Kelly, I think, but the comment about the Master Teague, why Master Teague walked today. He does have another year of eligibility, and whether he's a draft prospect. I think that may be more of he's graduated. He could potentially go be a grad transfer somewhere, because he's probably not starting ahead of Travion Henderson next year. And he is a very good back. He is a good player who, if you put him on another team, is going to be potentially a starting player. So he has an opportunity to go somewhere else. He's graduated. He's got his degree. He's got some Big Ten championship rings. He's got to go play in the national championship game. I mean, like he has a lot of stuff. He has a lot of positive memories, I think, to take away from Ohio State. And going out on 21 carries, 95 yards, and a touchdown today was pretty cool for him. So yeah, I mean, that's not official, but if you're walking on senior day, that's probably a pretty good indication that everyone is sort of like, this may be your last game in the horseshoe. So there you go.
Yeah, I think a lot of the players are reading the writing on the wall, and for Master Teague, it's big, bold letters about 2 young guys in front of you. Watching Michigan drive for a second score here very shortly. I see Tree Buck mentioned that Cade McNamara hit another helmet. Is that 2 on the game? That's
there was another one. I have not been watching every single play, but
that's
like a problem.
Around. I have it on here right now, but I've been watching more of the Alabama game.
Is this because Michigan needs to recruit shorter offensive linemen? If we can't have these 6'3" tackles out here.
Can you imagine if he was playing behind DeJuan Jones? He'd be hitting DeJuan Jones in the butt. Like, oh man, you can't do that.
They would never throw to the right.
Well, and I'm watching him throw right there. They just threw a nice pass to Andrew Anthony, but he just like short armed it. I mean, there was no one in front of him. He just like short armed it. It's like, well, if you're going to do that, I understand why you're hitting people in the back of the helmet. King Bronco says, Tom, it is personal for me. You never answer me. I didn't see whatever you asked before. So Razmataz says, thankfully, no targeting calls today.
That
The
was
targeting
big.
calls. There was a Tommy Eichenberg hit in the second half that I was like, oh no, don't get it. Like it wasn't targeting, but it was like in the neighborhood where before there's a collision, it was like, this might not end well. This would be a really stupid way to this would be a really stupid way to lose the first half. King Bronco, who has a Michigan logo for his icon, says OSU going down 31-23 next week. Dan Stroud choke. Tim Biakapatuka is not walking through that door. I'm not sure that 31-23 is happening, but maybe. I mean, Michigan is up 13-0 on Maryland right now, and Ohio State struggled with Maryland for upwards of 45 seconds. So
yeah, true. King Bronco, does Tony know who I am? I know no. So no. I know Michigan. I know a lot of Michigan fans. I don't know them all.
I
I
know who
grew up
King
with
Booker
many.
is in wrestling.
So I grew up with a lot of Michigan fans. They didn't stay Michigan fans. They're no longer Michigan fans, but they were in the 90s. And then, found other teams to root for, particularly one in Columbus. So Michigan up 14-0, and it looks like it might be time to start finding another game, perhaps the CBS game with Arkansas and Alabama. I do wonder what happens with Master Teague next year. I think he's probably playing somewhere else. Looking through some of these comments, Harbaugh still playing musical chairs with the QBs against Maryland. That can't be good. Well, JJ McCarthy didn't play last week because it was a close game, and they couldn't really take the chance of losing the ball. And here, I haven't seen him play, but if he's playing, they're not so concerned with Maryland beating them, so they're feeling pretty good. I do think McCarthy plays next week because they're going to need as much offense as they can find and can manage. And he brings the ability to stretch the field, which is good. And then also he can run the ball. I wonder how much he's going to throw next week. I do expect him to run. I'm going to be really surprised if Cade McNamara is having a lot of success against Ohio State throwing the ball. And I'm also going to have a good deal of surprise if they're having a great success running the ball. Against Ohio State, Michigan always has like one good run, but other than that, they're pretty well contained. Kevin, how do you see that running game going next week for Michigan?
I'm just watching King Bronco try and take on the entire chat and throwing out a $5,000 bet straight up, not even points. So, all right. Is Blake Corum going to be playing? Because I like Blake Corum. I know we talked about him earlier. Hassan Haskins, nobody moves the pile like Hassan Haskins. I mean, tremendous with that leg drive, but I think Corum is the more dynamic guy. But even with that being said, we sit there and we saw the first three games for Michigan, and they run for like 370, 340, 330. And it's like, holy God, this team has completely reinvented the run game, and then everything is kind of normalized since then. And I'm not saying that the numbers are bad. They're still a very good running team, but they're not the same team that they were playing Western Michigan, Washington, and whoever. I mean, and like Lansing Barber College. I mean, it's very different. So no, I don't really like Michigan coming out there and putting up 250 on Ohio State on the ground.
And Tom, we know, and we'll get to the super chat. We know Michigan doesn't lose to Ohio State about once every decade. So last year counts for that, right?
That's true. I mean, that is, maybe that was Michigan's version of the 1992 Ohio State-Michigan game where Ohio State tied Michigan, and Gordon Gee, then Ohio State University president Gordon Gee, called it one of Ohio State's greatest victories because he didn't have to fire John Cooper, because he didn't want to fire John Cooper. So yeah, I mean, that was, Michigan did not have to hold the L last year, so that's good for them. And this is, obviously we're going to have a lot of time to talk about that game this week, but this is a good Michigan team. This is the best Michigan team they've had probably since 2016. I don't think it's a flawless Michigan team. I don't think it's a Michigan team that's necessarily been particularly tested this year because of some of the teams that they've played and what those teams can and can't do. But I think this is a good Michigan team, and I think a lot of that game is going to come down to, can Ohio State block Aiden Hutchinson and David Ajabo? Because if Aiden Hutchinson and David Ajabo have less than 2 sacks or less, Ohio State probably wins that game by 3 touchdowns. If David Ajabo and Aiden Hutchinson have, 3 sacks, 4 sacks, and can force a turnover, that's when you're going to get into a game. But if Ohio State doesn't turn the ball over and Ohio State can protect C.J. Stroud, I still don't. I mean, it's lovely that Michigan has not gotten thrown on a lot this year. Look at the passing offenses around the Big Ten and look at Ohio State's passing offense. So, I mean, I can pull up the long-range forecast for Ann Arbor for next week, and maybe it's going to be snowing sideways, and maybe that'll change things. But yeah, that's Ohio State's not a great matchup for anyone in the Big Ten, but I don't think they're a particularly great matchup for Michigan either. Because is Michigan going to be able to run the ball on this Ohio State defense?
I don't think so. And Treebuck says weather looks tame for next week, 30s and some sun, low winds. Getting to that super chat from William McMillan, who is the best? And Tom, we'll have a week to talk about this Michigan game, even though it really just comes down to, will they block David Ajabo and Aiden Hutchinson? Rinse, repeat for the next week. That's really, you can run the ball all you want, and that's always what the yards per carry determines who wins the game, essentially. But stopping those two that will take it from a close win to no drama in the second half type of thing. So, William McMillan, super chat, who is the best and worst of the Big West opponents for OSU in the championship game? I don't know if we should be talking about this just yet with Michigan coming up. But since you asked, and it is a super chat, I really think Wisconsin is the only, Wisconsin and Iowa right now are tied in conference play at 5-2 in the standings, but Wisconsin has the tiebreaker. I don't expect Wisconsin to lose this week, and then they play Minnesota next week.
Minnesota next week, yeah.
So
yep.
I don't know where Minnesota's 4-3, Purdue's 5-3. So there is a potential for all kinds of heck to break loose. Wisconsin is clearly the worst matchup for Ohio State because they have the best defense. I don't.
Which would make Iowa the best matchup because those are really the only 2 teams that are there.
Well, and we've seen what happens with Purdue. But Kevin, I think Wisconsin's defense is the worst matchup for Ohio State. But the Wisconsin offense, what are they going to score against Ohio State? Tops out, do they top out at 21, 24?
I'm going to say 17.
Which seems like a lot.
I mean, I'm going to say 17. I mean, that has all the trappings of a 35-14 type of game. And the truth of the matter is who I need to see. I mean, I need to really go and look at Wisconsin's numbers to see what Wisconsin has faced. It's hard for me to buy a lot on Wisconsin. Their numbers are better than Georgia. Well, okay, but they're also going against probably some, Wisconsin never plays a good non-conference schedule. Never once every 8 years they play somebody worth a darn. They'll play a team will come up and play them at Lambeau or something.
They played Notre Dame this year, which doesn't necessarily disprove your point, but go on.
Anybody who knows me understands what I'm saying there. I said that with full knowledge. I don't think Notre Dame's that good. I've said it all along. I'm not impressed by Notre Dame. But taking that aside, they don't play anybody. I mean, they play against the Big Ten West. I mean, Spencer Petras got benched. I mean, well, maybe he was hurt, but Spencer Petras got benched. Northwestern is terrible. They're not going against a lot of teams, so I think some of their numbers are fool's gold.
Yeah, and you look at they are 1-2 against the Big Ten East, losing to both Penn State and Michigan this year. That was the first 4 games of the season. Those two, the Penn State and the Michigan game. I would like to see where those, if they're played over the last 3 weeks, what it would look like. We've seen Wisconsin finally find their running back, and he's doing well. But I just think there's only so much scoring they can do because Graham Mertz is not any kind of answer as a passer, and Wisconsin is one-dimensional. And if you slow Ohio State down to their season low in yardage or whatever, I still think they're scoring 31 or 30. Maybe they get stuffed in the red zone quite a bit. You score 30 and you still win by 9, and then you're in the playoffs. And anybody else, I just don't see them being able to hang within several touchdowns right now. Even Iowa, maybe especially Iowa, where I just think there's nobody over there that gives Ohio State the trouble that Wisconsin can give them. And it's only so much trouble, I think, as opposed to a few weeks ago, Tom, you and I talked, Wisconsin right now with Ohio State scoring like 26 points in consecutive games, or 33 and 26, not looking great, not running the ball. Wisconsin would really give them some trouble. And I think they will, but not enough.
Right, and I think where the challenge is not necessarily from Wisconsin per se. I think it's more from having to play Wisconsin after you played Purdue and after you played Michigan State and after you played Michigan. That's the 2019 Big Ten championship game story. Was the Big Ten really wisely scheduled Penn State and then Michigan for Ohio State to close the season, and then they have to go play Wisconsin in Indianapolis. People forget Ohio State was number 1 in the playoff rankings going into the Big Ten championship game, and then playing their third straight top 10, top 15, very physical, tough game. Guess what? They were kind of beat up. They were kind of tired. They didn't get to play a SoCon team 2 weeks before that. So they were, they had they came out a little slow, a little flat, because again, it is hard to be up 3 weeks in a row, 4 weeks in a row. You're at some point going to have a game where you come out a little slow, a little flat, and still the talent wins out. But you're getting into the, if you have to win with some style points to bump up the college football playoff rankings, that's a problem, because Wisconsin is a team that you're not going to put 59 points on Wisconsin this year. That defense is too good. So even if it ends up 35-14, if the first half is 10-7, then everyone's going to look at that and go, well, Ohio State's not that good. Look, they're struggling with Wisconsin. So that's where I think the problem is. And got to remember, 2019, what was the difference between LSU passing Ohio State? Was that slow first half for Ohio State. What did that mean? That meant Ohio State got Clemson and LSU got the first round bye against Oklahoma. Like that stuff does matter.
It definitely does. And any time you can look this good, take advantage of it in Ohio State. And I think they look so good that I'm sorry, what's going on?
Just the comment said I'm punching.
I'm reading the screen and wondering what on earth we're talking about.
How many bar fights has Tom won in his life? King Bronco is 3 for 3. Or is that 3 and 3 lifetime? Probably better 3 and 3.
No, I was
3 wins,
3 up, 3 down,
losses.
probably. That's what I'm thinking.
And really, if you're in a bar fight, you've technically already lost right there. Like, I've been in a lot of bars. I don't think I've ever actually seen a bar fight, which tells you I only go to the classiest places, as people would expect.
How many Waffle House fights have you seen? That's the real
17.
Question. Those are the real
17.
fights. Bar fights are for noobs. What about Waffle House fights?
Yeah.
I don't know. I saw them almost weekly at Papa Joe's back in my collegiate days.
R.I.P. Papa Joe's.
And I was even in a couple of them as collateral damage. I generally wasn't in the middle of it.
Certainly not. Why would anybody want to punch you, Kevin?
I don't know.
Tony, please, we have to get to other topics. We can't spend all day listing things off. Come on.
Maryland looking to, they've got a 1st and goal, and of course, commit another penalty. I think that is their second in the last few plays on offense, as they are trying to score against Michigan right now. Kevin, you said something about Nebraska. What happened with the Huskers there?
It was 4th and 2 from like about the 6, the 8, and Martinez ends up play action, ends up having both ends crashing in on him, and he ends up airmailing his tight end in the back of the end zone, which was kind of in a cluster.
Is it Adrian Martinez? Really?
Yeah, I know. A cluster in Nebraska kind of go hand in hand, like a Runza and cabbage.
Not every Runza has cabbage, Kevin. We've said that over and over. Just relax on the Runza. It's very good.
It is a cabbage hot pocket. That's what it is.
Anyway, so first of all, Troy V says around me, Chuck E. Cheese fights are legendary, which, I mean, you got to grab the animatronic mouse. That's the key to winning those. Eric Biddle says, you three have lost your minds. Yep, facts only. And
the Jason Williams, the Jason Williams comment. Tony, do you think Team Up North can stop Earth, Wind, and Fire? What did you guys think of the nickname that Herb Street gave them? I did not mind it, as far as this is something being handed down from Herb Street. If he is the one who named him, I thought it was okay, and I even agreed with who should get the names.
To me, I think if you're going to do Earth, Wind, and Fire, doesn't Travion Henderson have to be one of them? What is Earth? Earth is the ground.
That's Jackson Smith and
That has to be
Jigba.
the running back, right? You're not going to have it.
Not when you're doing a name for 3 receivers.
Well, yes, so that's why it's not that's why it's not a good name for 3 receivers.
Then what are they supposed to be, like the 4 tops? I mean, I'm trying to think 4 non-blondes. I mean,
that would
I'm
be for
trying
4
to think
people.
of other bands with 4.
4 non-blondes. That's pretty good, Kevin.
The 3 amigos. I'm not going to stand up and do the thing, but you know the thing I want to.
No. It's been done. How about Bachman Turner Overdrive? And then like Chris Olave is the faster. He's the overdrive. I don't know who Turner and Bachman
overtime part. Yeah, they got to the work and overtime part, and they did not leave the work and overtime part for the entire first half.
I mean, Alabama named their entire team after a band. Why can't Ohio State just name a couple of receivers after Earth, Wind, and Fire? What's wrong with that? So I also like it, which is a surprise. So is Jameson Williams Pete Best? Yeah, perhaps. So that's a pretty good comp for him right there. Jake Parsons, can we talk about how this was the best half in maybe Ohio State history? And we'll get to the super chat. And I would I brought up the Iowa 95, which was an amazing experience, but this was just it was perfection. I don't know how you can have a better half offensively. Defensively, you're putting up numbers that you would have for an entire game. It was a complete, as we said at the start of the show, a complete video game. This was, I'm just going to pad stats. I'm going to do this, and I've got targets. I'm going to score 100 in the game, so I'm going to need half of that in the first half. I want 1,000 yards of total offense, so I need half of that in the first half. And Ryan Day went out and did that. The players did it. He called an awesome game. In the first half, C.J. Stroud was on point, 29 of 31. We've seen some other good halves. Amazingly, this was the 4th game, the TV show, the 4th game where Ohio State had scored 40 points in the first half this year, which that's a stat in and of itself. I'm sure that's the season high, probably a season record. And so kudos there. But yeah, I don't know how a half can be better than that one, Kevin.
No, I mean,
do you remember any?
No, I mean, how would it have been better? I mean, other than them scoring quicker and getting more possessions potentially. I mean, they touchdowns on every drive except for the kneel down. I mean, just so proficient. I mean, defensively, they were able to kind of just do whatever they wanted as well. I mean, it wasn't a situation of where, they had a ton of sacks. Oh boy, I don't know what
I'm just reading the super chat and I can't wait.
Oh boy. Wow, yeah, I've already gotten that one out of my system. So I'll be quick here. Ohio State good first half. They I can't think of a better half. I mean, I've seen some dominating games, but not in the half. And on to Tom.
Okay, so super chat from Stephen Piper. Tom, in your SEC voice, explain how if the Buckeyes eviscerate Michigan and Wisconsin, they still aren't the number 1 seed. Bonus points for using it just means more and or for reasons. Now, before we get into this, I will say, if they do eviscerate Michigan and Wisconsin, you still probably, if Georgia wins, you probably still have to have Georgia in the number 1 spot. I think that's really only fair. Georgia has been decisively the best team. At that point, they would probably have a win over Alabama. So it's not unreasonable to think that. So let's just provide that context up front. So let's have the context of this be that Alabama either beats Georgia or loses to Arkansas or Auburn and then beats Georgia or, whatever. We have a 2-loss SEC. There are no unbeaten teams. That will be the context here. This is important to set this up. We have to do this scientifically. All right. Well, how many SEC teams did the Buckeyes beat this year? None. What's the best league in the world? Where does it just mean more? Guess what, Big Ten? More like just means less, am I right? I mean, I don't think it's that much. I don't think it's I don't think it's really that much more complicated than that. And that's what isn't that what these arguments always boil down to?
Yeah, it's certainly not complicated. Super chat from King Bronco. Thank you for. Is that a fake super chat or is that a real super chat? Did I just get duped by King Bronco?
No, I mean, it really came in as a super chat. I mean, because it comes into my chat panel highlighted. I mean, we have part of King Bronco's money, so maybe now the bet needs to be for $4,990 because $10 has gone our way.
Why don't they allow super chats? Why don't they allow super chats of over $10,000? You know, I've been asking that very same question.
They will allow two of 5,000 though. If you just, if you want to do that, I'm expecting King Bronco to put a hold on his account after this this video. He's just teasing us right now with money, but we always do appreciate all of the super chats. When you guys throw them in, we try to get to them as quickly as possible. Also, right now, since you're here, go ahead and hit the like. That lets other people find us, and that is always good for us. I don't know if you guys heard that. I heard something.
Yes, I did. An angel got its wings. JJ says Cincinnati's up 20-0 on SMU. So you know what? Good for Cincinnati. They're finally doing what they needed to do all season long. That's a game they have to win. They have to win with a little bit of style. They still need a lot of help at this point. They've dug themselves a pretty big hole. But if you only get one SEC team in there, and if you have, if Ohio State wins at Michigan and beats Wisconsin the following week, and you get a little bit of help in the Big 12, and they're probably getting in over Notre Dame, probably, and Oregon potentially loses tonight. Like they're still alive for the playoff, but they need to win games like that. They can't screw around with bad teams anymore. They have blown through all of their margin of error already on that front.
Saw Braylon Allen just go long for Wisconsin, a long run to go up 14-7. Maryland settles for a field goal because field goals are going to get this game won for them. They're now trailing 14-3. I just watched Cade McNamara wind up and unleash an 8-yard pass down the field. So touchdown that was Arkansas. Touchdown Arkansas. Oh, really?
10-6 point pending.
That's, I am looking at, I'm first of all completely thrown by the Teach Me How to Dougie request, which I don't think I've thought about how to Dougie in at least 10 years. So I'm not sure I can
Doug
tell you how to
Lesmerises
Dougie
or something else.
But the Maryland kicking a field goal there when you're on pace to give up 40 something points. Like that's a good reminder that Michigan State wants to give $95 million to a guy who thinks we should kick a field goal when the other team is scoring 7.0 points per drive. Do you know how math works? Do you know how football works? How many times did they punt? They didn't go for it on fourth down until they were down by 49 points and there was 1:40 left in the third quarter. What are you doing? Who wants to give this guy $95 million? Oh, no, please don't leave us, Mel Tucker. Please. Please. We can't punt the ball away. What would happen? We might get blown out. We can't go for it. We might get blown out. What are you doing? And then you're appealing to your team. Oh, you've got to play for pride. You can't quit. You quit the whole first half. What are you talking about?
And really, there's no difference between forcing Ohio State to drive 30 yards or 80 yards. At least if they only drive 30 yards, you get the ball back sooner and you can maybe try and do something with it. It's it's going to take years and years to just not settle for something they've always done in terms of you always punt here. And that's how I learned it. That's how my father learned it. That's how his father learned it. But when you're facing an Ohio State offense like this, you have to keep the ball for as long as you can and have as many possessions as you can get. And you have to do your dangdest to not break serve. And if that requires you going for it in your territory on a 4th and 5, you gotta at least try, or else you're just like, well, we know that we are going to lose, and we also know Ohio State's going to call off the dogs in the second half, so it won't look as bad as it could look if Ohio State really wanted it to. We know they're going to do us a solid on this one, provided maybe we punt, and maybe that's what it is. it's rolling over and showing your belly so that Ryan Day will rub your belly and not throw the ball on you like for 3 quarters instead of just the 2 quarters and maybe one possession. Is anybody else asking questions other than
They
King
are,
Bronco
but
right now?
this is interactive, and I figured it could be kind of like, The Voice or one of those other competition shows. I mean, they wanted the vote on King Bronco. I'll start. I have no problem. King Bronco paid us, maybe. And if King Bronco wants to come back next week, I'm sure that everybody likes to have a villain around. And he hasn't said naughty words or anything else that makes me have to worry about whether or not I can push it through. So yeah, I'm fine with it. I don't, and as people have said in there, they don't hate King Bronco personally. They just don't like what he stands for, and that's that team up north.
Well, Kevin, we already have a villain on the show. Tom. Tom is the villain.
But Tom doesn't
I
give
think
us money.
that's why we don't like him. Super chat from Buckology Academy. I love it most when Michigan fans are high on hopium. Makes the slaughter ever more so satisfying. I don't see anyone stopping this offense. That is very grim, but also you said high on hopium. I like that. That's a nice play on words. This is I think Buckeye fans have to agree with this. You want Michigan fans coming into this game excited and hopeful. Sure, it can be fun to steal hope from them all season long, and it's just like, I'm not even looking forward to football this year. But really, that's I don't think that's as fun as ruining that hope. Like stealing the hope that's something that happens over time. And what is better is stealing the hope that they come into a game with, because then there's some sort of it's fresher that way. Not having playing against Michigan and fans have no hope. That's like stealing stale hope. You want the
Long
fresh hope.
touchdown, Jamison Williams. Stop me if you've heard
There
that
you go.
before.
I mean, are Michigan fans hopeful right now? I don't get the sense that they are particularly hopeful. I mean, you go to Michigan sites and it's like, yeah, they're covering football again. It's not just exclusively hockey and basketball content like it was for like the first 9 months of the year. But I mean, if you polled Michigan fans, and maybe this is time for one of those famous Tony Gerdeman Twitter polls, like, I mean, we did one. Like I suggested one, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, that was, Michigan fans, what is your most likely outcome? Ohio State wins by 21 plus or 14 plus or any other outcome. And I mean, it's a Twitter poll. It is not exactly scientific. Please make the third option. I just want to see the results so it's not skewed. But
What do you want, Tom? What I'm doing it right now. What would you like?
You want to make it Ohio State wins by 3 scores or more? Ohio State wins by 3+ scores. Because I feel like Michigan fans are not particularly hopeful. Like, this has been a good season for Michigan. They've won a lot of games that they typically would not have won in the past. I don't think Michigan fans are looking at this team and going, oh, yeah, no. We got this. We got this. I mean, you're going to have individuals who do. Like, every team has its Rutgers Owl. Like, that's fine. But I can't imagine. I mean, I popped over to MGO Blog at one point today during the first half to just see their game thread about the Ohio State-Michigan State game. And it was just like, well, of course, Michigan State's bad now. Like, Michigan State only beats us. It doesn't. And like, okay, but Michigan State's beaten literally everyone except for Purdue and Ohio State. And the way you beat Ohio State this year is you throw the ball on them, because no one's really been able to run the ball very well against Ohio State. So how optimistic are they about their corners? How optimistic are they about their defensive ends being able to get pressure on C.J. Stroud with Ohio State's tackles, who are not Penn State's tackles, who are not Wisconsin's or Maryland's tackles? Like, Ohio State has good tackles. So how are they going to be able to get pass rush? How do they feel about the defensive backs? And how do they feel about Cade McNamara being able to throw the ball if they have to throw the ball to win? Because I don't think the answer to any of those is super duper, feel great, everything's absolutely, they're going to win next week. I think there's a lot of, Talia Tagovailoa, if his receivers were 15 feet tall, he would be in the Heisman candidacy as well. There's an old MGO blog bit about that. I mean, like 15 years ago, about
Yeah.
Chad Henney's invisible friend Taco Pants, who was like his 12-foot tall invisible friend, who Chad Henney would just airmail passes to, and Taco Pants was leading the team in receptions at one point. Talia Tagovailoa needs Mike Locksley to recruit a Taco Pants because he just cannot get the throws down.
Taco Pants.
Taco Pants, that was his name, yes. And I just they haven't faced a team that can. Michigan just blocked a punt.
Spoiler alert.
I don't think Michigan's defense has played a team that does the stuff that Ohio State does. So, and I think Michigan fans recognize that. I think that they recognize this has been a very good season for Michigan. This has been the best season they've had since 2016. But Ohio State's coming. That is the thing that happens. That is the thing that happens at the end of most seasons. Ohio State is coming, and Ohio State is pretty darn good this year. And I don't know that Ohio State is a great matchup for Michigan.
Well, the earlier results are in on this one. 30 votes, with some of those, a quarter of those being just show me the results. Right now, it's Ohio State wins by 3+ scores is 68.3%. Any other outcome, 6.7%. And again, I have addressed this to Michigan fans.
See if we can round that up.
Give me a sec. Let me refresh here. See what we've got.
No, we want
to. And it is now at 63.3%. People are just looking for results at this point, so that's where they are. This super chat from Jason Fruth. Ewers look good on that handoff. Can't roll Stroud there again next week, right?
He's saying it's a Quinn Ewers era. That's what he's saying.
Well,
CJ Stroud threw 3 incompletions today. How many incompletions did Quinn Ewers throw?
Fair. He threw 0. Kevin, what did you compare and contrast the ability to hand the ball off? Because really, that's what's going to decide this thing between CJ Stroud and Quinn Ewers this week in practice and next year as well.
Well, the mullet from under the helmet was flowing. He was in full handoff mode. It was pretty impressive. I mean, I was about ready to sign him to an NIL deal myself, just based on that, for being the spokesperson for the Big Me kickoff. But yeah, I think I'm gonna keep riding with this Stroud guy because I think he's pretty good at the football too.
Yeah, the Noon image and likeness will have to wait for Quinn Ewers, I'm sure. Treasure the Torah, Tom, from what I see, Alabama is really benefiting from that transfer from Coach Day. And yeah, but like I said today or yesterday, could have been any of the guys from Ohio State leaving and going there. It's a matter of the big fish, not necessarily small pond, but empty pond. There's like nobody else there at Alabama right now to take all of those catches. Plus, he's really good. Is he better than Garrett Wilson, who is going to be taking his place as the X receiver there? Clearly, he didn't think so because he left. And it's funny. He's got like a little self-fulfilling prophecy about how Ohio State fans abandoned him. So when he graduates from Alabama, he's going to consider himself an Alabama graduate. And it's like, well, would you consider yourself an Ohio State graduate if you graduated from Alabama? I didn't quite understand that part of it. But by speaking ill of Ohio State fans, then he kind of got what he wanted, because now Ohio State fans have abandoned him, and he could be like, I told you so. Ohio State fans abandoned me after I talked down about them. And yes, there are still some Ohio State fans who don't like CJ Stroud. So don't feel bad, Jameson Williams. You're in some rarefied air there. And like that's just the nature of social media, and where there's the vocal minority, and if you have something good to say, just keep that to yourself, and if you have something bad to say, let everybody know. Super chat from Tate G, #mullet mania. That feels like it's going to be a touchdown for Arkansas there on a deep shot. Going to be 14-14. Mullet mania. Yeah, I think that can be a hashtag that we see in the future for Ohio State. What would happen? Do you think? I remember growing up, there was a long time local TV news guy, and he had a mustache. He was very famous, and the rumor was he had to check with like NBC corporate in New York. Like, hey, do you mind if I shave my mustache? It's getting to be the late 80s. No. It's getting to be like the late 80s. Yeah, I need to go clean shaven. And he had to get the okay from corporate. Does Quinn Ewers, with all of his deals, Tom, will he have to get the okay from corporate if he wants to cut the mullet?
I feel like that's kind of his personal brand at this point. So, I would assume he's got some brand advisors because he's cutting some pretty significant NIL deals. So, yeah, I would assume that there is probably more than just one person involved in that decision. And that's there's a certain amount of commitment to the bit there too, where this is not just a new thing. Like, this is something he's had for a while, and now it's like this identifiable thing. I do wonder if this is something that, at some point when he wants to, it's like when a wrestler wants to go heel, or when a wrestler wants to turn face, like, you change your gimmick. I wonder at some point if he does change his gimmick, and then he's Quinn Ewers, successful businessman, and he's got the slicked back hair, and not, gets a more traditional or professional haircut. So yeah, that's a possibility. But yeah, I don't think that's happening anytime soon.
Well,
Tom, always talking about wrestling.
Hollywood Hogan. I mean, when when he went
Yeah.
NWO, I mean, he just had to sit there and put that fake dark stubble and just change from the red and yellow to the black and white of NWO. Too sweet.
I do like the question from JJ. Interesting question. If Fields was here this season, do you see him as the runaway Heisman favorite? And the absolute answer is yes, because everybody knew him and knows him, and he's been a finalist. And really, if you have the notoriety, that's half the battle. And he's got that. And if you're playing like CJ Stroud, if Justin Fields could be able to play as well as CJ Stroud, dare to dream for Justin Fields if he could be as good as CJ Stroud. But I see Mark Givler in the chat there. We'll get to super chat, Mark, if you really want your questions read.
Well, we do have two in the queue now, but
okay. But yeah, he would absolutely be the runaway. Mark Givler, thoughts on Ewers not keeping on the read action on the first handoff? There was nobody out there to stop him. Tom, I would agree.
Just another Ohio State quarterback scared to run the ball. Kyle
McCord
shameful.
Ran.
That's true.
Exactly.
That's true.
And I tweeted
and you know
about
what? CJ Stroud ran. CJ Stroud had a good play. Like, and I think that's almost turned into a meme at this point. Like, everyone's, every time CJ Stroud completes a pass, it's like, oh, why doesn't CJ Stroud run the ball? And I think it's kind of gotten a lot, like, too far one direction now. It would have benefited Ohio State for CJ Stroud to run the ball during the games when they were not putting up 49 points at a half, and there were several of those where they were pretty close games. So I think CJ Stroud running the ball like he did today, which is just like, hey, there's nothing there. Go pick up 7 yards. That's literally all people were looking for. I don't think you're looking to run the offense through CJ Stroud's legs. I thought that he is, this is sort of what we had talked about, which is JT Barrett never had 20 carries when they were playing Tulane or, Bowling Green. They would save those carries, save those hits on his body for the times they really needed it. Well, now you're getting into the games where you may really need it. Here's I'm going to just get this on the record right now. CJ Stroud, this is one of my bold predictions for next week. CJ Stroud has a rushing touchdown at Michigan next week. They're going to save it. They've been saving it. They're going to save it. He's going to do it next week against Michigan.
We're going to have to negotiate on that one. Super chat from Jason Fruth. Which backup showed out the most who potentially earned more reps in the remaining games? I liked seeing what we saw from all of the defensive tackles. Tyleek Williams got another sack. I saw Ty Hamilton in there as well. Like, I don't even consider those guys backups. They're just a rotation, and I think that will continue. In terms of backups, I liked what I saw from Court Williams, liked what I saw from Craig Young, who was out there pretty early on. Julian Fleming, I think he's continued to come on and do some things, and Mayan Williams looked good again. So I think at this point, I don't know that anybody has earned more time. It's just the guys who have earned the time that they saw today justified the being on the field and just continue to increase the confidence that the coaches have in them. So I don't know that they will play anymore, the backups or anything like that, especially coming up against some opponents where the starters, I assume the starters are going to be playing most of the game from here on out. So getting backups more time in there, it depends on what kind of packages. Like Craig Young, what kind of packages with Michigan State's offense being what it is and Michigan's offense being what it is, where it's not necessarily 3 or 4, it's 3 receivers. There's a lot of 2 tight ends. Where is that where Pala Ie now Teoche is more involved if he's healthy enough? Is that Craig Young as the third linebacker? Is that Court Williams maybe as the third linebacker? Because we saw some of that in today's game, and maybe he's played his way into there. So we will see. I just at this point I don't know that anybody has gone from 12 snaps in this game to 20 or 18 against Michigan.
Don't try to fix what ain't broke. And I mean, I know that we've seen a couple of weeks where the defense certainly has had its issues, but this team that just put up 56 points on the number 7 team in the nation, whether or not you believe that they truly were the number 7 team, they went out and beat a ranked team 56-7, 655 yards of total offense. We can go through all the numbers again. I don't know if I'm doing a lot of meddling and tweaking right now at this point. Now, if Ohio State puts up 49 in the first half against Michigan's up 49-0, sure, try some things. But otherwise, you just need to. We see in college basketball where you shorten your bench a little bit. You really can't shorten your bench in football, but this is not the time to expand your bench either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Tom, I want to go ahead.
Well, I was going to say there's a number of people. There's some Kyle McCord slander in the chat right now, and Kyle McCord didn't look fantastic today, but Kyle McCord also, think about how many reps Kyle McCord has gotten. Think about where CJ Stroud looked like when he was getting, he had the number of reps that Kyle McCord had today. Like CJ Stroud did not look super fantastic at the beginning of the year. And, a lot of people probably overreacted to that at the beginning of the year. And a lot of that was probably shoulder injury related, which we were more or less telling you at the time, this is probably shoulder injury related, because he is not, CJ Stroud is not a bad quarterback. Kyle McCord is not a bad quarterback. AJ Hennig just muffed a punt and I think just wrestled the ball back away from a Maryland player. And then just squirted a water bottle directly into his eye. I think he must have gotten poked in the eye. He must have gotten poked in the eye. I just looked up and it looked bizarre.
Oh, my eye.
So, Kyle McCord is not a finished product right now. And, you can go back to the beginning of the season, and there's a lot of overreactions about what Ohio State looked like at the beginning of the season. What you are week 1, week 2 is not necessarily what you are week 11, week 12, week 13 when it really matters. That's true of teams. That's true of units in terms of sides of the ball. That's true in terms of individual players. That's especially true of young players and, youth heavy teams. Ohio State is a very youth heavy team this year. Don't get too hot takey about Kyle McCord right now based off of one, mop up duty in a game that Ohio State had, throttled back 45 minutes earlier. You just, he's going to be he's going to be a good college quarterback, whether it's for Ohio State or somewhere else at some point fairly soon. He's a true freshman. Like sometimes true freshmen do not look fantastic. They do not, even Justin Fields did not look fantastic as a true freshman at Georgia. He looked fantastic as a redshirt freshman at Ohio State, but he did not look fantastic as a true freshman at Georgia. So
let him throw to Jack Smith, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. Let him have the real playbook. I mean, we sit there and we see the second string or the third string quarterback come in, and it's student body left, student body right. Mm-hmm. You've got talented guys around you, but they're not the starters, and you're not a starter for a reason. So you're not getting to run the regular plays. You're not running out there with the regular offense. Therefore, if we insert you in with all the ones, you're just terrible because, we saw you not be able to execute where we're going student body left and student body right.
Well, and Kyle McCord hasn't played in 4 weeks. So this is the first time he's back on the field in 4 weeks. So there's a little bit of rust is okay. I think in that point, and he was throwing to Sam Wiglu's on his interception, and there's nobody behind him. And if he would put some more air under that, it would have been an interesting result. Super chat from Rick Reese. Thank God CJ ran the ball today. And I have 2 wishes. One, I wish that I could give tickets to bad parkers and bad drivers, like people who are just all over the place in traffic, and could just be like, boom, you've got a ticket and you need to pay for that. My other wish is that when CJ Stroud is rolling out and there's nobody in front of him, or there is somebody in front of him, but people watching think there's nobody in front of him and say, run it. And then he throws a 15-yard completion. I would like to have the ability to point those people out, and some sort of live video footage of these people yelling for CJ Stroud to run the ball before he throws a 12-yard completion, and just be like, and I would put together a long, like 60 minutes a day, an hour show of these people saying this as Jameson Williams is going to score again on a little slant there. But just running it as a clip show and saying, see, this is this. Look at you. Look at what you're saying, and look at what happened. And this is why I was dismissive of so many people talking about CJ Stroud running the ball. It's because the results, stop ignoring all of the results that we see from CJ Stroud, because you didn't get the 5-yard run that you think is the difference between Ohio State winning against Purdue and beating Georgia. And until they play Georgia, what it's like, him running against Purdue does, as I said on Twitter, like, you can't carry over the quarterback rushing yards to Georgia. So what's the point in worrying about it right now, or complaining about it right now? When the time comes, then if he's not doing it, go ahead and get upset. I watching what he's doing this year. If you're upset by his play, football's not for you. Like, go like, sports are too emotional for you. I don't know what it is. Like, just appreciate what he's doing this year. He's the Heisman favorite right now. That's got to count for something. Super chat from Jordan Kepler. I better read this before I actually read it. I want to talk about how happy I am for Olave breaking the TD record. I honestly cried, but my wife wasn't in the room to see it, so it doesn't count. No. Well, no, that's two separate. That's a good point. Does it count if your wife doesn't see it? Now, I usually tell my wife, like, okay, I was crying, because she can usually see it. Like, have you been watching the reunion videos and seeing like military homecomings and people reunited with their pets? And I'm like, yes, I have been. But I think we're all happy for Chris Olave, who came back this year, gets the touchdown record, on the verge of many other records at Ohio State. And I don't know if you guys saw it, Ohio State was tweeting out yesterday, Friday, like, all of these goodbyes from the seniors. And Chris Olave, they all like write these notes, and Olave said the biggest impact he's had on the person who had the biggest impact on him at Ohio State was Terry McLaurin. So I retweeted at CC Terry on it, and then he was like, McLaurin tweeted out like, this made his day, and that's like what it's all about. And you go back from like Chris Olave's freshman year, Terry McLaurin, Paris Campbell, Johnny Dixon, just a really great group of leaders. You go back to when those guys were young, and it was Evan Spencer, who was this really good leader. And you've got this lineage of guys, and Chris Olave is passing that on to Jackson Smith and Jigba, and he's going to pass it on to Keon Grays and Caleb Burton and Julian Fleming and Marvin Harrison and Mecca Igbuka, and they're going to pass it on to Marvin Harrison III, and they're going to pass it on to
Marvin Harrison IV,
Alan DeGraff and Reed IV. I mean, you've got this line and lineage of really cool stuff. So yeah, I think we're all happy for Chris Olave. Go ahead, anybody.
Yeah, no, he's someone who he kind of gets lost this year in a way. I mean, we've talked about the fact that, you try and rank. I think a week or two ago we were doing like the rank the 3 wide receivers, and you could make an argument that Chris Olave is the number 3 receiver this year. Also, Chris Olave might leave school with, he already is the leading touchdown receptions career leader in Ohio State history. He very well might be the leading receiving yards player in Ohio State history. And there's like an outside chance he's probably going to finish maybe number 2, maybe number 3 all time in receptions. And I mean, like, he's going to go down as potentially one of the greatest wide receivers in Ohio State history, but also he's maybe a little bit underappreciated this year, which is just bananas.
When you watch the pregame show, and they did the 4-letter network pregame show, and they sat down with the 3 receivers, and Wilson and Olave both said that, yeah, we understand we're good, but this guy pointing to Jackson Smith-Njigba, he's the truth. And so if they feel that way, I mean, who am I to disagree with them? But I agree that Chris Olave is greatly underappreciated just because of the guys that are around him right now. And Olave is going to leave with his name all over the record book, but don't go to the official site because that record book only is current up through 2017, as we
Well,
have talked about before.
it, and I tweeted out video of this a month or two, maybe 2 months ago, asking Garrett Wilson about Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Garrett Wilson said, I used to think I was the best until this guy came along, and you realize that everything that Jackson Smith-Njigba does, it's just natural and it's almost flawless, and just so he's there are other guys coming and then followed Chris Olave's lead, and just good to see. Super chat from Gabriel Carter. We blew out the number 7 team in the country, and people still find something to complain about. Just enjoy the win. CJ is a great quarterback. I don't know that anybody's really complaining. We were just, it was a nod to people who have complained in the past about CJ Stroud running the ball, and seeing how he ran the ball once today, and he got some yards. But if he didn't run the ball, it still would have been a fantastic day. And that's kind of my overall point with CJ Stroud is, okay, is that 5-yard run really what puts you over the top in terms of, okay, I accept him now. He can be my quarterback. Jay Burke, David Boston, and I really need to read these first before I read them because I see tattoo and I don't know where it's going to go. David Boston had a tattoo of Ric Flair when he was at Ohio State. That's when tattoos weren't even really fashionable, LOL. You may think that, but any tattoo in any era of Ric Flair is fashionable. It could have been the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the aughts, the tens, the teens,
the Dickities, yes.
the Dickities. I did not know that about David Boston. I know some other things about David Boston. I did not know that one. That's interesting. Who? I don't know. All right, let's ask Kevin. Assuming you don't have any tattoos of wrestlers currently, what one wrestler would you get tattooed on your body?
Hornswoggle. No. I knew where this was going, so I was prepared. There. I don't know. I don't have any tattoos. I don't have any tattoos of wrestlers. I'm so down on wrestling right now. I mean, I might get a Vince McMahon tattoo just because I haven't seen anybody submarine his company the way that he's done here recently. So I don't know. But maybe Hornswoggle.
Perfect. Just right the entire back. Just Hornswoggle on the entire back. Super chat. Buckeyes from Tennessee. I think OSU just scored again. No, they did not. Ryan Day did in fact call off the dogs. But Quinn Ewers did hand the ball off again and looked fine doing it. I do wonder what exactly the numbers would have looked like if they wanted them to look however they wanted, and it would have. I don't think 100 points is out of the realm of possibility. I do wonder at what point would Michigan State have started to intentionally hurt the Ohio State Buckeyes, and that's another reason why you got to get those guys out of the game as quickly as possible in the second half. I saw this and I wanted to talk about it. Jay Burke, Tito Paul hit the guy on the 20-yard line and knocked the guy's mouthpiece out. It went flying out of the back of the engine.
That was maybe one of the most violent hits that I've ever seen in my life. And when they were starting to talk about the necessity for targeting rules, I'm like, CC Tito Paul, because that was incredible.
That we're talking about the Michigan State punt return?
Yeah, was it Derek Mason? Who was the Michigan State punt returner on that
it
one?
was.
Yeah. There's that one. There's the Zach Dumas one from the Alabama or the Auburn
game, yes.
Hall of Fame Bowl. Those are the two that always come to mind. Michigan, I swear Michigan scored a touchdown and then suddenly they were kicking a field goal. So I'm not sure. It must have gotten overturned. It sure looked like a catch to me, but as we learned during today's Ohio State game, I apparently don't know what a catch is, because I thought it was when you had the ball in your hands, took multiple steps, turned, made a football move. Like that sure looked to me like Roman Wilson caught that, at least watching live, caught that and got his feet in and controlled it to the ground. But
Tom, if you don't know what a
I've
catch
turned on
is,
the Illinois-Iowa game because somebody has to punish themselves, and it's gross.
yeah. And Michigan's
you
up
don't know what
24-3 at halftime, so I think it's probably safe to say it is now Ohio State week for Michigan at this point. I mean, I don't get the sense that they are in any danger of Maryland scoring 3 touchdowns, barring a turnover. I am going to be interested to see what do they do with J.J. McCarthy in the second half of this game, because he's been playing. He had a good throw earlier. I think he might have had the throw to Mike Sanderstill for the touchdown earlier. He's looked pretty good. That he's going to be an interesting guy to kind of keep an eye on for next week, because I do think they're going to put him in, and then the question is just, is he, does he have the impact they want him to, or does he have the Jermaine Gonzalez off the bench kind of impact that Michigan has also had in the past?
Tom, don't bring up that. That's, what was that 1994,
2001. That was the 2001 game. That was the snap that was that caused a safety that went from 21-0 to 23-0 right before halftime.
Super chat from FDR is great. Do you think Ryan has been working on some extra plays for Michigan? What was Harbaugh's reaction? What was Harbaugh's reaction after OSU versus the MSU game? Harbaugh's reaction. What do you guys think? Harbaugh's reaction. I don't think he was watching the game. Doesn't want to be influenced by anything. Doesn't even want to know that they exist. It's all about the team. And also, you probably don't want to get freaked out about what's going on. And once you see it, when it's 21-0 after 7 minutes, you're like, "Don't tell me anything. I don't want to know anything about this. Don't just. I'll find out later. I don't want to know. Don't even let them put it up on the scoreboard. I realize it's a road venue. Just ask them, do me a solid. Don't put the score up. Yeah. And do you think Ryan Day has been working on some extra plays for Michigan? There's always something there's stuff for every team. You bring out some stuff that you see in practice, or that you see in film rather, that you think will work and that you do well and that can catch them and out scheme them. So in that vein, I don't know, Kevin, do you think there's are they holding back a reverse pass or any, are you expecting anything? Do they have to do something outrageous or any trick plays, or is that a nod to the fact that we don't think we can just do this with our base offense if they have to come up with something crazy?
I don't think you have to do anything different structurally. I don't think you come out in a different formation. You suddenly come out and you run a lot of 12 1 back 2 tights, and you come out in 21 with 2 backs and 1 tight. And I think what it is you build off of things that you're doing, and you break some tendencies. And okay, well, they've done this multiple times here, and then you sit there and you put a wrinkle from that. I think that's really where it comes down to, more so than being like, oh my God, we've never seen this formation. I would rather lull them into something by, oh, we know exactly what this is going to be, and then they do something completely different. That's what good teams do. Bad teams have to rely on completely rebuilding themselves from week to week to try and, Jedi mind trick you.
Well, although, Tom, if you can sometimes hide Ted Ginn at tight end and throw deep to him on a play action, that's also.
I talked about this earlier, but we've probably added some folks since then. On the touchdown pass to Jackson Smith and Jigba, the Stroud's rolling right. Jackson Smith and Jigba comes across the formation, real slow developing play, throws the touchdown to Jackson Smith and Jigba. In the background on one of those shots, on one of the camera shots, you could see Garrett Wilson sneaking out the backside. Stroud's rolling right. Garrett Wilson kind of leaks out the left side with a couple linemen, where he would have walked in on a throwback screen to him on the backside of that formation. I think you're going to see that. You're going to see them throw that ball at some point next week against Michigan. They'll show this. This goes with Kevin's point. You show the same look. You show the same play. Like, oh, we just saw this last week. How about that? And then you throw it to the other side of the formation as they're all flooding one way. You go back the other way for an easy one.
and I am just looking at the super chat, trying to do some quick math here. Let's see here from Terry Kovac. Will all three receivers, aka Earth, Wind, and Fire, reach a season total of 1,000 yards next week? We know Jackson Smith and Jigba is now over 1,000. Garrett Wilson came into this game with 813. He leaves it with 939, so that puts him 61 yards away. So yeah, I think he'll reach it. Chris Olave came into this game with 708 yards receiving, leaves it with 848. So he is also, I don't know that I'm going to say likely,
Yeah.
but he could definitely get there. And so, yeah, I think you could see all three of them hit that mark next week. It would take a big day from Chris Olave, but he is a Wolverine killer, as we know. So I wouldn't be shocked. Maybe that'll be one of my bold predictions, Tom, is that Chris Olave leaves that game as a 1,000-yard receiver for the first time in his career. So congratulations to him. What a way to end his regular season career as a Buckeye, as a 1,000-yard receiver with about 160 yards receiving against Michigan and, say, 3 touchdowns.
If that happens, I would feel pretty good about Ohio State's chances to win the game. If you want to pick one particular guy to have 152 yards receiving against Michigan, I will give you 2 points for that. You don't even need to do that for one of your 1-pointers. I'll give you 2 points for that one. But yeah, I mean, you look at the receiving totals this year, and it's ridiculous. Jackson Smith and Jigba has 1,132 yards, 1,132 yards receiving. That is ridiculous. I'll go through. I'm going to pull up the Ohio State record book, the updated version of the Ohio State record book, to find the where that ranks already in terms of season, greatest receiving seasons in Ohio State history.
Third?
He is at
fourth?
1,100 and what did I say? 1,132. Yeah, he's at 1,132. So he is now already third. He is behind David Boston's 1998, Terry Glenn's 1995. He just passed Chris Carter, 1986, not the offensive lineman, the wide receiver of some renown. He passed Michael Jenkins today. He passed Paris Campbell today. They've only had 5. This is actually something they showed on the broadcast. Prior to this year, they'd only hit 5,000-yard receiving seasons in school history. They're about to have 3 in 1 year. That is ridiculous.
Was it 4 and was JSN 5?
No, Herbstreit had that incorrect on the pregame.
I thought so too, and it got me thinking, but I never looked it up.
The five before this season were David Boston in 98, Terry Glenn in 95, Chris Carter in 86, Michael Jenkins in 2002, Paris Campbell in 2018. So it was 5 before this year. Now Jackson Smith and Jigba is 6. Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave could be 7 and 8.
And Jackson Smith and Jigba right now is on pace to break David Boston's record from 98 in terms of total receiving yards. If he just continues to do what he's doing, which it sure seems like he's having a good time doing it, so he's gonna. John Alexander, fellas, I might be missing something here, but everyone thinks CJ will be gone after his sophomore year. Help me out here. Thank you. Yeah, last year was CJ Stroud's freshman year. This is his redshirt freshman year. Next year will be his redshirt sophomore year, so he would be eligible to leave for the NFL after that. And I think I expect him to leave after next year if he is the top quarterback or if he's projected as a first rounder. You just assume they're going to go. We saw Dwayne Haskins leave as a redshirt sophomore. CJ Stroud will be on better footing because he will have started for 2 years, just like Justin Fields did. Would Ohio State take him back? Yeah, I don't know. They've got some other guys they like in the pipeline, but if he wants to come back, certainly they would take him. But I just, at this point, until a redshirt sophomore who has started at least 1 year under Ryan Day, until he comes back for that redshirt junior year, I'm just going to assume they're all going to leave as redshirt sophomores. That's where I am right now. Like, we won't ever see a fifth-year senior quarterback at Ohio State unless he transfers in under Ryan Day. I don't think we will also see a guy who it might take something for a 2-year starter to then come back for a third year, or for a redshirt sophomore starter to come back for his second year of starting as a redshirt junior. You're going to have to convince them to come back because they're going to put up big numbers. These are all guys who are NFL caliber because that's what Ohio State is recruiting. And so it's like, I could see, like, the way I've seen it is Kyle McCord starts for 1 year in 2023 as a redshirt sophomore and then goes to the NFL. And then
Mhm.
Quinn Ewers does it for and at that point he's going to be a redshirt sophomore as well. But is he going to stick around? So there are a bunch of questions. I just don't expect a 3-year starter unless he is a true freshman starter at quarterback for Ohio State moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's a safe bet. That just, I mean, when you're recruiting guys, Ohio State doesn't recruit project quarterbacks anymore. They don't recruit guys who are, game manager type quarterbacks is maybe a better way to put it. Like you're not getting Greg Fry anymore. You're not getting some of like the early John Cooper quarterbacks where it was like, you're not getting Craig Krenzel anymore. You're not getting Todd Beckman anymore. Like every quarterback is a 5-star quarterback at this point, basically a top 100 guy. For you to be a top 100 guy, you have to have the arm strength. You have to have the accuracy to be able to play at the NFL level. And then it's just a matter of putting it together. And if you're starting for Ryan Day, there's so many other good quarterbacks there that in order to start, you have to be putting it together. You have to be capitalizing on those talents. If you're not starting. So it sort of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where the only guys who are going to be able to start for Ohio State are the guys who are exactly the type of people that are going to go take the NFL, get that NFL check as their earliest possible opportunity.
Yep. Super chat from Bilal Asaf. Great show, guys. Thanks for the wonderful content. Keep it up. Thank you very much for that. Thank you all for the questions, the super chats. As always, we do appreciate that. If you're on right now, you want to hit the like button, we would appreciate that as well. That is the 3rd or 4th time we have asked to hit that like button, which is a record because we always forget. So look at us. I'm proud of us for
We've
asking
also gone
for
an
stuff.
hour 50. We're at an hour 56. That's also a record. I don't think we've ever gone this long on a show.
No, we haven't. But King Bronco is back, so I don't know. Do we want to go any longer?
I think we dropped that back down to about 410. We're up above 500 people on the stream right now. We can write it out another minute, but as we were joking in our own little private chat, some of us have to go make beer runs. Poor planning.
Yeah, poor planning. I'm with you there, but I don't know. Let's start wrapping it up then. Tom, anything else that stands out from this one as we look forward to Michigan?
I think this is a good reminder that you need to not overreact to week 1. You need to not overreact to September. You need to just kind of recognize that it is a process. You have to kind of, teams do not remain static from September to November. And if they do, they are very, very bad by November. Ohio State teams, especially under Ryan Day, have been getting better and better throughout the course of the season. You look at the, what that 2019 team was at the end of the season, that when they went to Michigan and played a decent Michigan team, they killed Michigan that year. 2020, what they were at the end of the season when they were, running Trey Sermon all over Northwestern, when they were running, what they did to Michigan State last year, what they did to Clemson last year. Like that was not the same team against Clemson as it was against Nebraska week 1. Nebraska week 1, they looked, they were giving up points early. It was, I think they ended up 52-17, but it was like that was a somewhat competitive game for a while. It was somewhat competitive against Rutgers for a little while in the second half. Like it was interesting in the second half at one point. And I think your tendency is to go, well, this is broken and it'll never be better. It's like, well, I think Ryan Day has earned the benefit of the doubt that he's going to, when the defense is broken, he will make the changes that are necessary to fix it, even if those are not necessarily easy changes to make. And that's true with players. That's true with Kyle McCord based on how Kyle McCord played today. Don't write Kyle McCord off yet. He's a true freshman quarterback who has not gotten a lot of reps, has not played in games for a month. I mean, you have to. This is a process. Not everyone comes out like their final fully formed form at the first time you see them. So just a little bit of patience, a little bit of don't freak out. Like I know it's real fun to freak out in the game thread or on Twitter or whatever. Like this is when next season starts, Ohio State will at some point have to punt in the 2022 season. That is my first bold prediction for 2022. Ohio State will have to punt at some point during the season. Do not freak out. That does not mean they will never score a touchdown again.
Wow, Tom the pessimist. I'm seeing people King Bronco offering to uh, once. I'm not going to wrestle you, so don't worry about that. No super chats for that. Lady Seals bar brawl with Tony. Count me in. No, I'm a peaceful guy, especially at a bar. So no brawls. Um, but I do agree with Bilal. If I'm in a bar brawl, I want Kevin with me. That way, because Kevin can take a punch. I think we know that. He
You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
see he will get crazy. Super chat from Stephen Piper. Kevin, I'll let you take this one. A couple more big time recruits in attendance today. How much does seeing this offense live influence potential commits? And just remember, it was 5-star, 4-star, 5-star receiver Carnell Tate, 2023 kid, and a 2022 quarterback Devin Brown, two of the key guys in attendance. And if you are a top wide receiver and a top quarterback, and you watch this, um, boy, howdy, especially Devin Brown being a USC commit.
Yeah, he wasn't seeing this at SC with Devin Brown. It's certainly, you look and you're like, hey, I like this system. Hey, I like the weapons that they have. I mean, but you look at the quarterback room and you don't necessarily know what's it going to look like. I mean, you gotta play a little bit of a balance game there. Hey, we're expecting a little attrition, so you don't know. But I feel very good about the impression that Ohio State's going to leave on Devin Brown. Carnell Tate, the 23 wide receiver. I mean, he's already really liking Ohio State. I mean, he has 5 finalists. It's truthfully 2 finalists. It's Ohio State and Notre Dame. Um, I know where I would want to be in terms of as a receiver, in terms of what the quarterback talent and what's around me. But, Carnell Tate has to just kind of get to that conclusion himself. And one other guy I want to mention is offensive lineman Peyton Kirkland. And Ohio State's offensive line had a good game. Stroud only went down the one time, and that was really because there was a bit of a twist, and he just kind of fell down instead of taking the hit. I think this does a lot for Peyton Kirkland in terms of what he's seeing out of Ohio State. It's never a bad backdrop to sit there and have a situation of where the offense just goes nuts, and you're like, hey, I'm here for that. I could do that.
Now, I would argue a little bit on Carnell Tate to where being the draw of Notre Dame and having the ability to play with a former Wisconsin quarterback, for instance, like when Notre Dame has to go and get Wisconsin quarterbacks, that to me, if I'm a receiver, that means a lot to me that they can go and get somebody like that to quarterback their team and throw the ball to me, as opposed to all of these guys at Ohio State who are only going to start for a year or two before going to the NFL. At Notre Dame, I know I'm going to be able to build a rapport with a quarterback over years, unless of course it's a cast off from another program. But I know there's no concern about that Notre Dame quarterback leaving early for the NFL. And I think that's something to watch there, where you can really, really build a relationship over 4 to 5 to 6 years with the guy, and really just become one between the quarterback and receiver. So, but yeah, I think Carnell Tate will be a Buckeye as well. Definitely sooner rather than later, but not too long. I mean, he's a 2023 kid, so it could be over. It could be 13 months from now, but I don't expect it to be. Probably 1 month from now, I think, as he's going to go in December. Nebraska 14-14 tie. We will let you go so that we can go all go get to the second halves of all of these games. Want to obviously thank all of you guys for tuning in for these last 2 hours. Really crazy, exciting game. Something you don't get to witness every day. So there's a lot to talk about in this Ohio State win. I want to thank you for the questions, for the chats, chatting with each other, keeping it peaceful. Thank you for the super chats. John Alexander says, forget about the Michigan game. No, we will not forget about the Michigan game. The Michigan game is here. It is Michigan week. What have you done to beat Michigan today? That is a question Buckeye fans should be asking themselves every day, the rest of the week. And if at any point the answer is nothing, then you should go change that. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys later.